Hi, my name is Cindy. I remember when my brothers and I were kids that we would be so excited if we found a penny on the ground. Um, we'd race to see who would get it first. And even as I'm older, if I find a penny on the ground, I like to get it because to me it's money. So I remember before I retired, I was in the break room with a coworker, younger coworker, who was digging change out of her purse and counting it. She had a handful, and I noticed there were some pennies on the floor, so I picked them up and I said, "You dropped some money." And she said, "No, I didn't. I missed the trash can." And she took the pennies and threw them in the trash can. And I said, "You're throwing money away?" And she said, "No, that's not money. That's just pennies." Well, when she left the break room, I grabbed some lab gloves and a clean trash bag, and I dumped it out, and I found all the pennies she threw away, and there was about 25 cents worth of pennies. So I washed them up and I kept them because that's just me. It's money. So I got to thinking about all these pennies on the ground over the years that we find. Very rarely do we find a nickel or a dime or a quarter. And I thought, how do you just drop a penny, because when my husband has a pocket full of change, and he'll have other things in his pocket like a pocket knife or his glasses or some hard candy, so when he wants something and he goes digging for it, all the change falls out, and so then he has to pick it all up. So then I got to thinking, well, maybe somebody dropped some change and they picked up all the silver and left the penny, or maybe they were counting like my friend and kept the silver and tossed the penny. So either way, it seemed like people just don't like pennies anymore. Well, my husband has a fishing buddy that whose father passed away, I think this past year, and his mother was asking him to come over and help clean out like a pole barn. It wasn't the garage, but it was another building. And apparently his dad was pretty much of a hoarder. So, there was like tons of stuff in the garage. And finally, this friend of his took a week off and went over to his mother's, and they rented a huge dumpster, and he began to clear out this building. And it was just really junk. His dad just couldn't stand to get rid of anything. But in the process of doing so, he'd move something and he'd come across some change. And he'd move something else and he'd come across a jar of change. And this went on. And now he didn't know why there were jars of change in this building that no one, not even his mother, knew. But if they were anything like my dad or my grandfather, whenever they were working out in the shed or the garage and they had a pocket full of change, they always took it out because they didn't like it jingling in their pocket and making noise. And so they would throw it on the counter or in a cup or in a jar. And then they just never took it back. So it's probably what happened. Possible he could have been saving it up on purpose, but he never told anyone, not even his wife. So at the end of the time that this friend had cleaned out the shed and the dumpster was full, he had a massive amount of coins, and he took it to the bank, and the bank counted it, and it was 2,300 and some odd dollars and cents of change that his father had laying around in this shed. And he was able to bring that back to his mother. And so I just, it's money is important to us. I think that money is a gift from God, because it pays our bills. It puts food on our table and clothes on our back and a house over our head. And we can buy a car and put gas in it, and we can go on vacations. You can do a lot of things with money. And I think that we are supposed to be wise in how we save it and how we spend it. And so, And so yesterday, my husband and I were shopping, and he found 2 pennies. He says, "Oh, I got 2 pennies." And just a few feet further on, he found 3 more. And he's like, wow, I found 3 more pennies. He said, that makes a nickel. And I said, yep, as far as I'm concerned, 5 pennies make a nickel. And I'll take that to the bank anytime. And thank God for my blessings. My name is Cindy. I'll see you soon.